Hi everybody, so this video is on Eduqas English Language Component 2. I'm going to do a quick overview for you because there are a couple of really important things for you to understand about the paper, and then I'm going to talk you through questions 1 and 2. If you're sitting the exam this summer, which is 2025, it is on Friday the 7th of June and it's obviously 2 hours long. So firstly, and very importantly, Component 2 is worth 60% of your overall English language GCSE grade. Have a look at last summer, so 2024 grade boundaries, which I have put on the screen for you. You can see that when they've split it down, each paper is out of 80, but the overall qualification is out of 200. So what they do with your component 2 marks is that they multiply that by 1.5, which gives us the 60%. Now, there's a bunch of things that are really positive for us about that. I love component 2, but it does mean that component 2 is super important and you absolutely need to make sure that you know what you're doing. So quick overview, then we're going to go through questions 1 and 2. So 2 hours, you need to spend an hour on each section. Section A is the reading section. You get a 19th century text, so something written in the 1800s, and you get a 20th, 21st century text, generally an article that's been written in the last sort of 20 or 30 years. They're slightly shorter than the fiction text, so they're normally about 500 to 700 words each, and obviously they're on a shared topic or theme. And if you've looked at any of the past papers whilst you've been getting ready for this exam, you will know that they are often on famous people or famous events, or I mean, we had the one on Jumbo the elephant, famous things. There are 6 reading questions in total. Then, and again, this is super important for you to remember, for the non-fiction writing section, it's often called transactional writing, you have to write 2 short non-fiction texts, and I'm going to do a whole separate video on that, series of videos on that, but you write both of them. You do about a page each, you spend half an hour on each one. Okay, so what does section A look like? Your teacher will have given you some timings. Use the ones that you've been using in school. This is just what I tell the students that I teach. So you've got an hour on section A, the reading section. Questions 1 and 2, or questions 11 and 12, however you want to look at them, questions 1 and 2 are on the whole of text A. And questions 3 and 4 are on the whole of text B. So in a lot of ways, it is a good idea to read the texts all the way through before you start answering the questions. And I'll say something else about that in a minute, but you are going to need to read them all the way through in order to answer those first questions. So as a reminder, you will have 2 texts. One of them will be in a separate booklet, and then one of them is on the opposite side of the page to the questions, and then your non-fiction writing questions are on the back. Make sure you don't miss anything. If you have a look on the screen here, questions 1 and 2, it will say, read the news article, "We save people, it's just our job." So they will tell you which text to read to answer which questions. Make sure you go ahead and find out what that means. Then we've got our question 1, which is the 3-part 1-mark questions, and the way you write that in your exam book is you write 11A or 1A, 11B or 1B, and then you just write the answer. So if you have a look at these, we've got it's asking for dates, asking for a name, is asking for how long did the rescue last. If you imagine that Eduqas want to help you, they are going to spread that information out in the text. They want you to spend 5 minutes reading it and about 3 minutes answering this question. So you've got, you know, a chunk of the first 10 minutes of the exam reading and finding some very simple factual retrieval information. So this is your process for question 1. Write 11A or 1A in your margin. It doesn't matter how you number it up. The exams, the computer system for scanning the exams is super clever. Read the question carefully, make sure you know what you're looking for, scan for that information, and then just write the answer. Different from paper 1, component 1, where you had to put your answer into a sentence. This time round, you just write the answer and then you do the same for the second 2. So with this particular example here, the answer to the date is the 24th of August 2004, and they would have accepted the 24th of August 2004 as long as those 3 parts were there. They would not have accepted just the 24th of August. They would not have accepted August 2004, and that goes the same with the how long did the rescue last. They would have accepted 3.5 hours no matter how you write that, but they would not have accepted 3.5 because they don't know whether you mean 3.5 minutes, 3.5 hours, 3.5 days. So you just write the answer to the question, but you do need to make sure you answer it. Okay, let's go on and have a look at question 2. So question 2 is your 10-mark question. You're going to spend about 10 to 12 minutes, remembering that we've got about 20 minutes on these 2 questions, and how you split those up is up to you. Unlike paper 1, and so I've got this, it's the same but different here. It is inference and evidence just like you did in paper 1. This time round, you can get 10 out of 10 with just 10 inference evidence, inference evidence, inference evidence. The only rule of thumb that you need to make sure that you follow is that you are generally picking up 1 piece of evidence per sentence. And I'll show you what I mean by that in an example from the exam in a minute. What you don't want to be doing is getting all of your evidence from 1 sentence, because it will often be the same inference, it will be the same bullet point on the mark scheme, and you can only be awarded it once. Remember, you've got the whole text to take this information from. So let me repeat it. All you need is 10 inferences plus evidence. So the question is often worded as the same. How does the writer, and then it'll say the name of the writer. That's reminding you to make sure you're reading the right text. And then it will give you the topic that it wants you to write about, and you'll often get 2 adjectives. So how does it show the rescue is both dangerous and dramatic? And the adjectives are what you want to highlight. That is your question focus, and that helps you because you're looking for something that's dangerous and something that's dramatic. So you are firstly highlighting the adjectives that your question focus. We are looking at dangerous and dramatic. Then you are going through the text in order from beginning to end, and you are finding 10 quotes, 10 pieces of evidence that show the question focus. So on this case, show it was dangerous and dramatic. And then all you do is simply write them up as inference evidence. You can do that in 10 sentences and you can get 10 out of 10. Now have a little look at the extract that I've got on the screen here. I am just going to go down towards the end of it when it says so when in force 8 winds and 10-foot waves she was in charge of the lifeboat that rescued 2 fishermen. So this is the very beginning of the extract, and that would potentially be your first piece of evidence. Force 8 winds and 10-foot waves. Now, because we're working with that rule of thumb that you only use 1 piece of evidence per sentence, you can either use force 8 winds or 10-foot waves, or use them together. What you can't do is say it was shown to be dangerous because there were force 8 winds. It was shown to be dramatic because there were 10-foot waves, because that's all in the same little bit of description. It would only be awarded as 1 inference. So for this one, our answer would be something like, firstly, the weather conditions make it dangerous. And that's how you can see the inference. I've used the word dangerous, but I'm saying the thing that's dangerous is the weather conditions. It could have been the fact that it was the middle of the night that made it dangerous. It could have been the fact that there were people that was injured that make it dramatic. So your inference is what makes it dangerous, what makes it dramatic, what makes it the adjective that's in the question words. The benefit for you, though, is because it's non-fiction. The writing tends to be much more clear and factual. You're not having to do any of that reading for deeper meaning that we see in paper one, any of that kind of understanding relationships or characters and all of that stuff. You're basically showing your knowledge and understanding of reading, and 10 inferences plus evidence will get you 10 out of 10. There is nothing else that you need to do. There is no need for you to do any more than that. So we are going to be having a look at questions 3 and 4 in my next video. Then we'll do the comparison questions, and then obviously we've got non-fiction writing to cover. I'm going to try and get these up for you in plenty of time so that you've got time to watch them, because obviously paper 2 is on the end of your first week back after half term.